As much as we'd love to, we can't do it for you. Hence, I can't tell you, yeah, just buy that deal, that'll be great. It requires your input, you taking control of your investment, your business of investing, and running with it and educating yourself and understanding and taking responsibility and putting your hand up when you need help. Coming to the team, getting the resources that you need and having us assist you along the way. It's partnering with you, not doing it for you.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard.
Hey everybody, my name's Tabitha Bright. I'm the head of the coaching team here at Positive Real Estate. And for today's podcast, I wanted to share with you a presentation that we did at our recent property summit. It seemed to be received well, and I thought that there's an important message in here that I really wanted to share. And there's a tiny bit of foo-foo-ness, not too much for those of you that are science-based. I tend to be more science-based than foo-foo. But, there is a tiny bit of foo-foo in there, so bear with me because sometimes the lessons we have over our investing journeys, they help us grow as people in a different way than maybe we expect. And I wanted to share some light on that because it's important that we talk about the growth that is required to invest successfully. When I was first looking at starting investing, and this is, God, I don't want to date me, but, probably 25, maybe 30 years ago. And when I first started investing, I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm pretty sure it was that book by Robert Kiyosaki that many of you will know, and it's an old book now, but it's got some great fundamentals for investing. And in there, he talks about, or in one of his books, he talks about how his friends would come to him and say, "Oh, just tell me what to buy. Like, don't worry about me having to educate me or anything like that." He said, "They just tell me what to buy and I'll buy it. Like you know the good deals. You make money in real estate. Just buy the thing. Tell me what to buy so I can just buy the thing." And he was like, "It doesn't work that way. Like it's not that simple." And I remember thinking, why not? Just tell me what to buy and I'll just buy it. I just couldn't. I was thinking, why isn't it that simple? Well, I think I've got the answer because I've been coaching here at Positive Real Estate for 18 years alongside Jason Witten, Sam Saggers, Shay Witten, the founders of this business. And over that time, I couldn't even tell you how many clients I would have coached. I've had around 1,000 clients of my own over 18 years. But then I've also coached team and I've also coached other teams' clients where necessary, because when stuff's escalated, I'm brought in obviously as a more senior coach to work with people through challenges. And through these challenges, there's been some patterns. And for anyone that's a fan of Anthony Robbins, you don't have to love him, but he has some interesting lessons and observations also from performance coaching people for many, many years. And he's always talking about patterns of behavior that he sees. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that today. And one thing I'd like to highlight before I go into any of that is that when it comes to our investing and education programs, we believe very strongly in education done with you, education that you participate in. And it doesn't have to be onerous, but you have to be committed to being on the journey with us. It's not something that we just tell you what to do and you go blindly and do it. That doesn't work. And I'll explain why as we go through the prezzo. So here at Positive Real Estate, we have our 6-star team as part of our coaching program. So myself and the coaching team fall under Positive Mentor. And the other part of the team that I'm in charge of working with is the positive real estate property consultants, our property investment agents. So what happens is, just to give you a quick rundown, is when a client joins Positive Real Estate, they do their goals, they get a review of their finance, we understand what roadblocks, what opportunities there are for you guys, and then we set a strategy. We do some education with you on market, on the types of properties, all of that good stuff. And when you're ready and you feel confident in your decision making, the strategy is shared with the property consultant and they match a property for you. So that's the gist of it. And during this journey, just quickly, here are the teams. So these are our fabulous coaches and these are our fabulous property consultants / property strategists. They do an amazing job matching properties for you. So on this journey, there's a couple of things you have to understand. We call it the positive mentor coaching system, but we like to differentiate between mentoring, advising, and coaching because they're three very different things. And mentoring is somebody that has done it before. So for an example, maybe I'd done a duplex property. And so I was going to coach you on how to successfully do a duplex. But if you asked me how to do an off the plan or how to do a house and land or how to buy an existing house and renovate it, I mightn't be able to help you because I could only mentor you in one space that I had done. So that's mentoring. All of our coaches do mentoring. They are all experienced in some form of property investing. They all hold property portfolios, and many of the team have been with me as long as Carolyn Weston's been with me 16 years, Louise Carr over 10 years, Karen over 10 years. Like, there's a raft of them that have been in this business coaching clients and investing for a very long time. And I'd really like to explain and expand on that because it's important that whoever you choose in your wealth creation journey, that they aren't just salespeople that are there to make you a sale. They are there to help you get a result, and they understand what your needs and your desires are, and they have some experience building a portfolio themselves. The next part of it is coaching. And all of our team are taught to coach using the various models that we have in our coaching system. The Success Triad is one of them. So coaches will use techniques that they're taught to coach you to an outcome. And so we think, you might have the coach of an Olympic athlete that has not won a gold medal, but they're very adept at coaching the athlete to success for themselves. So that is the coaching side of it. And the team are taught and educated in this. Then we have the advising side of it. So all our coaching team have certifications to talk to you about finance, and they have their Cert 4s in finance, but they can't give you financial planning advice. And for that's why we have the 6-star team. So we have our financial planning team, but they are licensed to advise you in other areas of your investing process. So the coaches tick off the mentoring, the coaching, and the advising component. And no one person knows everything. And this is, once again, why we have the 6-star team. So if, for example, there is more advice than the coach is qualified to give, they will then hand you over and introduce you to the next part of the team. And we find that works really, really well because clients appreciate the teams being able to talk to each other. So your financial planner's on board with your coach, that's on board with your finance broker, who's on board with your property consultant. So challenges we workshop, we keep each other in the loop of, so that you get the best outcome. You're not dealing with multiple opinions that aren't necessarily in line, which can happen when you have an accountant versus a financial planner versus a property mentor versus a buyer's agent, right? So this has been a very successful model for our clients to do really well with their property investing. One of the things we've noticed when we're coming back to the patterns that I was speaking about, generally investing looks like this. Over a 15-year journey, you'll have the acquisitions phase, the consolidation phase, and the lifestyle and legacy phase. Depending on your goals, so say you wanted $100,000 in retirement as your income, then you would need, let's talk very broad numbers here, $2 million in debt-free property assets, assuming a 5% rental yield. That would generate that. Now, I'm not going into expenses and all of that kind of stuff right now. We're just talking big picture numbers. So let's say you needed $2 million. In the good old days, you could buy 4 properties for $500,000 a piece. In today's market, with property prices really having climbed quite substantially, especially for good quality property in good quality locations, we are talking that 600 to 700, all the way up to sometimes $1 million for clients to invest with good quality property. That being said, we work with clients of all different backgrounds, all different income levels. It just might mean that the journey timeframes are different for you. There may be a bit more troubleshooting required. So don't let any of the numbers I'm talking about today put you off talking to a coach if you're not part of our fabulous clients, because there's always solutions if you want it badly enough. So let's say you were going to go and do 3 properties in order to hit this $2 million mark, roughly, let's call it roughly 700 each. It'll be slightly over 2 million. And it takes you 5 years to accumulate 3 properties. So that's your acquisition stage. This stage tends to be the stage that clients enjoy. It's a bit exciting. You're learning a lot. You're buying property, and it feels like you're ticking off your goals and you're getting somewhere. Funnily enough, one of the patterns we've seen that gets in the way of people succeeding is the consolidation phase. So consolidation phase is when you've either bought enough properties to hit your goals, or you've been told you can't service to buy any more. So we have to go into consolidation phase to then work out what are the steps that you need to take to be able to borrow again to continue your acquisition phase. So sometimes clients bounce in and out between them. Consolidation phase is where we're looking at paying down some debt, getting your rents up, doing any renovations or improvements to improve the value or the rental yield. Sometimes it's just about going and getting a hobby, as Jason would say, and making sure that you just leave the properties alone and let them do their thing, because sometimes properties, even if you've got all of the research and all of the backing that you're doing a great property deal, sometimes properties can be contrary. Sometimes the market can be contrary, and sometimes markets can sit stagnant when we expect them to perform. And so this tends to happen in consolidation phase for people, where they get frustrated that the property isn't doing what they want it to do. It's not renting at what they expected it for, or maybe the rents have gone up and then dropped back, which is normal in a property cycle. And so people can get really frustrated. And this is where we see a lot of people choose to give up. And so I want to talk about what resilience and grit look like when you're on your investing journey, because this is why Robert Kiyosaki, Jason, myself, Sam, the team won't just tell you what to buy and then tick that off as done, because there are some things that you need to learn to manage in order to get a good result and in order to be able to weather the ups and downs of any market that is natural and normal. Because all markets, whether it's the stock market, whether it's the housing market, they go like this, right? They go up and down as they continue their climb. And so people get very emotionally attached to their investing journeys, whether it's shares or property. But I think more so with property, we have a lot of expectations about how property is going to perform for us. And it is a medium to long-term investment to get the most out of your portfolio. And so what that looks like, dependent on your circumstances, what cash you're able to put in, what you earn, and all of those other bits of detail, it could be anywhere between a 7, 10, 15, 20-year journey in order to hit lifestyle and legacy. And so to weather all of that and to stay the course, because the biggest killer of an investment is boredom. People go, oh yeah, it's not really doing much. I'm bored with this. I should have bought that one. Oh, this market's hot. Maybe if I sell this one and jump into that market. I can tell you, if you're bouncing around like that, you're losing so much in all of the buying and selling costs, and you're not allowing the market that you've bought into, if you've done your research right, to actually do its job. So let's talk a little about that. Sorry, excuse me. Bear with me. Right, so the stages of investing. Now, there is a little bit of language that I've put in the slides there because this is literally what happens for clients. We talk about basically investor carnage. And investor carnage is where people give up and they sell. And often that's around, RP Data has some really awesome stats around this, around the fact that it's somewhere around the 6-year mark that a lot of investors give up, and they tend to sell when they sell for a loss, which is a horrendous stat. Like, we don't want that for investors. This is why when we talk about what percentage of the investing market, what percentage of investors actually have 5 properties and more, and we're talking 0.01% of Australia, like, because there is growth that is required to get to this stage, because otherwise it will mess with your head, and you do need to navigate this stage, which is critical to your investing success, so that you don't fail and basically become somebody else's barbecue story. So I wanted to share a little bit about my journey with investing, myself and my hubby's, Vin. And so when we started investing, we planned our goals. We'd read a few books. We'd attended a few workshops of different people. We'd migrated from New Zealand to Australia, and we were dead set on investing. And we were young and we were gung-ho. Vin had a business. We were getting dividends, some cash dividends from that business. So we were feeling pretty flush and a bit bulletproof, as you do sometimes when you're young, and especially in acquisition phase. And I tend to be big picture, and Vin was very detailed and methodical. And I was out the front going, oh, what about this deal? What about this? Oh, we can do this. Here's some rough numbers. Cool, looks like a deal. Let's do it. And Vin was very focused on the business. And so his job was I was going to step out of the business and do our investing, and his job was to run the business and keep the income coming in. So I did some big numbers, which was fine. The numbers stacked up. I wasn't totally daft about it. But I didn't, being big picture people tend to often be optimistic by nature as well. Not always the case, but generally. And so I tended to look on the sunny side of things. I tended to look on the optimistic side. So I'd do my numbers. I'd sort of go, oh yeah, if this happens, yeah, but will it? Nah. Let's look at the optimism. Geez, it might even go up this much. Awesome, we're winning all round. And basically what we were doing was we were buying blocks of units that had not been strata titled or subdivided, and we would submit plans that were often already in place, by the way, and we would get them strata titled and subdivided and go back and revalue them, take the new valuation, which was always higher if I did my numbers right, and then go back and pull that equity out and roll it into the next deal, holding that property with a buffer. That was great while things were good, but the markets changed. And as the GFC started to hit, lending changed dramatically. And by this stage, Vin had sold his share in the business that he had, and we were both living off our investing and the money that we were recycling in every deal. What that meant when finance changed was that we couldn't get lending anymore. We had been low doc lenders, and low doc lending changed completely as the GFC kicked in. We were negative, and at the time this was massive for us, because remember, this is 20 years ago. We were negative on our property expenses, 15 grand a month. And I remember looking at our buffers and what we'd put aside to live off from equity and thinking, whew, I don't know that that's going to last very long now that interest rates, they're so high, interest rates, and we can't get the lending to keep recycling our money. So now we couldn't get the profit out of the deals we were doing without selling them. But because the GFC was hitting, the property market was tanking. So we were owing more than what we actually physically had as profit. So we were in a real bind. And I remember thinking, like, how the hell do we get out of this pickle? And you guys will all know the saying that you can't approach a problem with the same thinking that created it. And Vin and I were like, okay, we need somebody else's eyes on this. Like, there has to be a way out of this problem. It's not insurmountable. It's a big problem, but it's not insurmountable. I was positive it wasn't insurmountable. And so I started looking into some self-development and came across a fellow called Scott Harris, who recently just presented at our property summit. He's an awesome mindset and performance coach. He's one of the best in the world. Anthony Robbins basically hands over to Scott to present if he can't do it for any particular reason, or he needs an event run that he's not going to physically run. Scott Harris is his go-to man, which is impressive. And I figured, well, he's going to have some skill sets around teaching me how to manage stress and come up with solutions. He's got a background in, I think, I'm not overstating this, law, but I know he's also got psychology and some other bits and pieces, as well as all of the on-the-ground experience. And he said to me, Tab, if you lost everything, can you still be happy? And I think, geez, we've already sold the business. We've lost, we're churning through all our profit and buffer. If this continues for another 8 months, like, we're going to be selling the house and maybe even looking at bankruptcy. And that was totally hair-raising for me. And for anyone that has had any kind of financial challenges, it's a financial hardship is one of the most horrid places to be. And I'd find myself waking up at 2, 3 in the morning and just going through the numbers and just freaking out. Every time I went to the letterbox, I was sure there was a rates notice that I had to pay, and it was just horrendous. In order to engage Scott, at the time, his fees were around $5,000 a month, and that was per person, and both Vin and I felt we needed the coaching. And I thought, I'm either being really stupid, and I'm good, no offense, Scott, and I'm going to really regret sinking like just about what's left of our buffer into this, or it's going to be the best decision I ever make. And so Vin and I, we just decided, you know what? We're not getting any better on this on our own, and we're only delaying the inevitable if this doesn't work. And so we commenced some self-development with Scott. I decided at the time to take on a franchise with Positive Real Estate. So we'd met Sam and Jace. We'd obviously had some conversations with them as well. This is back from the very early days. I love this photo. And we made a decision that we were going to fix it. We were going to do whatever it took to bring in the money that we needed to in order to survive. And you know, we lived on $3 meals. I remember Shay, Jason's wife, coming down to stay with us while she was in Melbourne. We were new franchisees. She was coming to stay and hang and talk business, talk property, and all those cool things. And I remember thinking to Vin, geez, what can we feed? And I made the best meal out of a couple of cans of beans, a can of tomatoes, some herbs and spices, some pita breads, and a bit of olive oil and garlic. And it was really good. It was the best chili beans I think I've made. And she was really happy. But I remember thinking, phew, I've winged that one. Like, it certainly wasn't any fillet steak or anything. And so we slowly worked our way through creating the cash flow we needed. What that looked like was Scott said to me, when you take on this business, you need to filter things by three things. This is going to be the key to your success. A, always and most importantly, it has to serve the client. B, it has to be creating cash flow. And C, it has to be looking after the business. And if you do those three things, you will solve your problem. And I was relentless on that. I followed it to the T, that I focused so heavily on clients and the business. I didn't put in a, I shouldn't probably be putting this out there, but I didn't put in a BAS for like 2 years. I didn't have time. Because it's funny, when you come from a place of serving and wanting clients to have a great result, you become your own kind of attraction magnet. And so with Positive support and all the work that they do, obviously, to reach clients, and the attitude of serving, which is, a big part of Positive Real Estate's backbone as far as their ethos, we managed to turn it around. At first it just looked like covering the costs and that was painful, but we hang on in there until the point that we were actually thriving. And we had, actually I should put in a photo of our mentoring clients when we used to catch up every month face to face. We'd have 100 plus in the room every month of clients, and it was just phenomenal. And obviously Positive Real Estate has gone to grow and expand well beyond that. And I think there's something like 10,000 clients, I believe, now between Australia and New Zealand, which is just phenomenal. And we are so fortunate and grateful to, be able to work with so many awesome people. So we turned it around. We restocked the buffers. The markets recovered. Suddenly interest rates dropped. That was a big major component when the GFC hit. Interest rates dropped really fast, which enabled us to gain a bit of traction and extend our buffers. We got to do a little bit more of the fun stuff, and life felt good again. But one of the big lessons here, guys, was that Scott got us doing fun stuff before the buffers were restocked. And part of what we had to do was to make sure that we were out there having fun in a way that didn't necessarily cost us anything. It might have been a bit of petrol. It might have been a picnic basket or something. We went kayaking. Running was a big part of, we just had to have some running shoes and run out the door. We ran together. We did, there was a whole lot of stuff that we were able to do and foster and work on together that actually made one of the worst of times feel actually not that bad. And this is the power of mindset, and having support when you're in a difficult time. So whether it's the Scott Harrises, whether it's, a psychologist or a mentor or whoever it is that you choose to surround yourself, having people that can inspire you and teach you new skills is critical to any investing journey, I think. And then, life felt good. But like life, we were then dealt a couple of major blows, 3 major blows, because, life is about ups and downs. It is about the yin and yang. Nothing's only ever good. And I think sometimes, I don't know if anyone agrees with me, but sometimes I wonder, would stuff feel as fun if you didn't have the crap stuff to offset it and give you kind of a reference point? I don't know. Maybe, I'm sure we could all do without more suffering, and there's certainly enough suffering going on globally. I'm not suggesting it's a good thing. But the yin and yang of life, whether we like it or not, it is just a reality. And so we got dealt a blow in 2011. First of all, Vin's parents passed away. They were killed in an accident. Vin got a diagnosis of a terminal cancer with a 5-year rough window of expectation that he'd be here. They do believe that stress, and possibly the stress of Vin's parents passing away, had contributed. There was a 6-month correlation that his specialist felt maybe was the link. So just a note to selves, how we manage stress is really important. I think if I could also say, for a lot of men, I can't speak from a man's perspective, but one of the things I see is men carrying a lot of internal stuff, generalizing heavily here. So this isn't everyone, of course. I think maybe women tend to talk about it a bit more. That has been my experience. It may not be yours, so take this as a grain of salt, but internalizing stress can be incredibly poor for your health. So just something to think about. And then just as we got that, the family cat also got bloody cancer, bowel cancer, and she passed away probably a couple of months after Vin's diagnosis, which was just, when it's like, okay, this has happened, that's absolutely just total shit, if you can bear me saying that. Vin's thing, absolutely, life-changingly horrific. And then the cat, just for shits and giggles. And, this is how we ended up with 3 cats. So I am now the cat mother, the crazy freaking cat lady to 3 cats, because after Moose, the cat with cancer, passed away, Vin and I and our daughter, we were like, well, we need to, have a pet because that'll be good for us. It's always good to have pets in your life. And I thought, well, okay, we'll go to a rescue shelter and we'll get a cat. And so we went to a rescue shelter, and there was two sisters there, 2 cats, Moose and Peanut and Nala, and we couldn't bear to separate them, so we ended up with 2. And then there was another troublemaker that came along a little bit later that desperately needed a home, and we felt sorry for him and wanted to do something good. So we've ended up with 3 cats, which causes me untold frustration. And so anyway, aside from the cats, here's the thing that I learned. You often build skills without knowing how they are going to serve you in the future. And we went back to what we knew. Lifestyle, Marcus Pearce is also somebody else that was presenting at our recent property summit, which I thoroughly recommend you Google him and have a look. He's done a lot of study into longevity. He comes from a journalism background, so it's well researched. He's got some awesome stuff. He's also got a book, which I know Positive won't mind me promoting, which is, here we go, Your Exceptional Life. It's awesome. If you're interested in longevity and how to have an awesome quality of life, certainly check out Marcus Pearce. Mindset was all about what Scott Harris and other mentors and education that we'd done on self-development and planning. So lifestyle, we did look at all sorts of stuff, from the completely nutty to the, the more what would you say, run-of-the-mill healthy lifestyle stuff. We tried it all on for size, and we chose what worked and what Vin felt made him feel better. We practiced being really deliberate with all our mindset stuff, and we planned everything within an inch of its life to make sure that we could fit everything in. Still, I could serve the clients at Positive Real Estate, and we could keep moving forward. We refused to give in to the 5 years, 5-year deadline that we were given by the specialist. And we'd also had good advice over the years. So we had all our ducks in a row anyway. We had property investments and resources. We had insurances. We had support networks. We had professionals across all gamuts. And we had cash in the bank now, in case I had to take a hiatus from work and spend time with Vin, and because it was a longer time frame and there was an unknown component to how he was going to decline, neither of us felt that me quitting work and just going and traveling was what we wanted as part of our bucket list. We certainly got a good few trips in, but what we felt most that was important for us was family, friends, and the small things, the everyday things. And we focused really heavily. It's funny when you're hit with something like this, because all the noise dies down and all the stuff that used to annoy the bejesus out of me suddenly didn't matter. The wet towel left on the bed, ruining my lovely linen. I didn't care anymore. Me leaving tea bags in the sink, which leaves a stain on the stainless steel that Vin had to scrub off. He couldn't have given a rat's ass in the end, right? Because it didn't matter. It was small inconvenient stuff. And so I think in a weird way, and this is not to try and Pollyanna or toxic positive anything, but it did mean we were very deliberate about how we chose to be together for the time that Vin had left, that maybe we wouldn't have been so conscious about if we hadn't had this massive wake-up call. That being said, it was still completely shit. And I think, everyone would be quite comfortable agreeing with me on that. 13 years later, 16 months ago, Vin's journey ended. He had a bone marrow transplant. Excuse me for a moment. And it wasn't successful. Bear with me, folks. I tend to have a little bit of a moment, but I'll readjust in a second. So that didn't work, and unfortunately, Vin passed away. So now it's hit rock bottom. So now we're at this place, or I'm at this place, and I'm going, what the hell did we do all this for? Because we've worked hard, we've strived, we've, got all the property investments, we've got insurance, we've had all the things, ticked off and done. we've worked as a team for the last 32 years together. And we had all these future goals because we still kept planning for them. And our big mantra was 80. We wanted Vin to get to 80. So we just had it in our minds, 80, 80, 80. He did really well to get 13 years. And most of that, a lot of people wouldn't have known he was ill when they first met him. And then unfortunately it had quite a sharp decline at the end. And then I was just like, I don't understand now what life looks like moving forward. And I don't have a compelling future. Like, I've got money, I've got choices, but at the risk of sounding privileged, it just didn't mean anything anymore. And so I think what I want you guys to get from this is that life doesn't always go as we plan. And we're going to have challenges, and they may be big challenges like Vin's story, or they might be small everyday challenges that mount up because you've just got a hell of a lot on your plate. You might have 3 kids, both you and the hubby, or you and your wife are working, or your partner or your significant other are working full time. You might have parents to care for. You might have a whole raft of stuff that is happening for you that any single layer more just feels insurmountable and so frustrating. And this is where we see people make really poor decisions. So I knew I could not make any financial decisions, and that I just had to get through a day at a time, and I had to pull on all my resources to get me through the toughest time of my life. On top of Vin passing away, within 2 weeks, my accountant had stuffed up something in my super, which meant that I was going to pay tax on Vin's life insurance, and it was a substantial amount of tax. I found a lump in my breast, and I fell for, and I'm very ashamed to say it, but I'm just total disclosure here. I fell for a Hey Mum scam, because what I've found is when you go through grief, I got what I called the stupids, and I just couldn't quite think straight, and I couldn't get my brain into gear, and I had this fear that came out of nowhere about, what if I stuff it up? And in a vulnerable moment, I got this text saying, "Hey Mum, my phone's broken. Can you send me this money? I'll pay you back." And I thought, oh, that doesn't sound like my daughter, but sure. And to cut a very long story short, I had several interactions with the scammers, and it all seemed incredibly above board and incredibly much like something that my daughter would do. And it was over, or how she would communicate with me. And it was over a number of days. So it wasn't even like, I think they sent me like a "Hey Mum, how are you?" text like 2 or 3 days from that number beforehand. "Oh, my phone's busted. I'm just texting you on this number." And then it was like 2 days later, they asked for money, and I thought it was my daughter. So I lost $1,300. Not the end of the world, certainly not hundreds of thousands like you hear of some people losing, but it was enough to really just, when you're at your lowest ebb, just that like smack across the chops one more time, which was just brutal. So I think I actually went a little bit insane. I turned into a bit of a cleaning freak, which I do like a tidy house, but I'm not like insane normally about anything being left anywhere or anything out of place. I got totally insane. Also had a lot of people coming through the house, obviously, people staying with me and all of that goes along with grief and funerals, etc. I had to be okay asking for help, and I called on a team. And my team were my family, my friends, my work family. I had my running family, medical professionals, financial and legal teams, and I employed everything that Vin and I had invested in self-development. I set a baseline routine that I would not go below. So no matter how dark it was for me emotionally, I got out of bed every day. I fed the cats because they wouldn't let me off the hook, and I made my bed. I aimed to have a shower every day. That didn't always happen. There were days I remember ringing my mum and saying, I'm going feral. Like, I literally haven't had a shower for 3 or 4 days. Gross, I know, sorry to share that. But I made my bed every single day, because what it meant for me was that I couldn't go in bed rot. I had to get up. I had to go and do stuff. When I came back to bed at night, it was a calm, scented space. It was tidy. It looked nice. And so that was kind of my baseline. And then I got lots of help. I had a psychologist who was amazing. I'm a massive proponent on being upfront and frank about mental health. I think we need to talk more about mental health. And I had a wonderful GP that also provided me a lot of support and made sure I was talking to good quality professionals in order to navigate everything that needed to be navigated as well as anyone can navigate it. So after a tough year, Positive Real Estate were amazing. They gave me full support through the whole process. I was off work 5 months while Vin was in hospital, in which case they supported me completely. Once I was through the first couple of months of Vin passing, my initial mourning, I did return to work. And once again, I don't know if I added a lot of value in that first couple of months, but it was just really good for me to be back around people. I'd go into the office and just get into a familiar routine. And I love my team and they were amazing. I checked into a retreat called Araha in New Zealand, and I met this wonderful lady called Lucy Hone, who you can see here I've got a photo with. So I'm a trail runner. I promise I won't talk a lot about trail running. And she just happened to be a trail runner, but she also happened to be a mother who'd lost her daughter and had, at 12 years old, and it's her story to tell, but she does share it freely. And she is a doctor and with global certification with some of the biggest universities, I believe, in the USA. And she was phenomenal. And we ran, because part of the retreat was going on these runs. And people could walk it. We chose to run it because we found each other. And we just ran for a week and talked. And she shared what she had done, and she found that when she lost her daughter, she started researching, because she's a researcher, and she started researching grief and how we react and respond to grief and how to overcome grief in as healthy a way as possible and work through it and sit with it and all of that stuff. Not fix it, just how to navigate it. And she was phenomenal. And that was really when my healing started to kick off in a meaningful way. She normalized everything that I was feeling and going through. But I think I'm talking and sharing this, guys, if you're wondering where this is all going, because grief is multifaceted. It's not just about losing a partner. It might be a divorce. It might be the grief of struggling with your portfolio and feeling like you're failing in your career, in your goals, in your, why isn't property working for you? You're going to have to sell something. You're going to have to go backwards before you can go forwards. Or people that have got businesses that go under. Like, all of that is its own form of grief that we have to learn to navigate. And a property portfolio can be relatively straightforward, and it can just be small, annoying stuff like tenants being a pain in the butt, the property market going up and down a bit, but you just need to hold and you're fine doing it. But if we're not careful, we can make these things bigger than they are as well, and we can put ourselves in an unresourceful state. And so I want to show you the work that I've personally done, not for a pat on the back for me, but because I think it's important we share stories around what does work and what building resilience looks like. And I've got so much to learn and so much to do and so much more to grow personally. I know that. I'm not saying I've got it sorted by any way, stretch or mean. But I think this is a really important conversation to have, because your personal growth and who you become on your investing journey will directly correlate to your results that you get. And I really want you guys to get that. So resilience for me looked like one day at a time, an hour at a time, a minute at a time. Initially, when I first was morning Vin, I couldn't face eating. I just lived on tubs of bocconcini, believe it or not. I'd have a tub of bocconcini a day and orange juice. That was all I could face eating. Weird, I know, but it worked. Then I transformed to light and easy, which wasn't very nice. And I called it light and queasy in the end, just because I thought it was vaguely more, comprehensive as far as vegetables and food than bocconcini and orange juice. Not by much, but yep. But I had to let go. If any of you guys are perfectionists that get in the way of your success, I had to let go of my standards. I had to go, it's okay to not be perfect. And I remember Scott Harris saying to me, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. And I just about lost my marbles. My brain couldn't compute. And this was prior to all of this, of course, because I was like, what is he talking about? Like, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well, right? We all know that. And he said, if you waited for perfect every time, nothing would ever get done. And so I had to be okay with just going through the motions and doing what I could do, and that being enough. And so here at Positive, one of our models for our coaching is understanding the pendulum that investors go on. And this is the same for whether it's grief, whether it's fear around money, whether it's your portfolio driving you batshit crazy, whether it's, something else in your life where you're invested in it, but it's not easy. Because under pressure, when you don't have the answers, do you freeze and get stupid? Because the pendulum swings between the two. And it's exhausting if you go to avoidance, you put your head in the sand, you overanalyze, you can't move forward. That is exhausting. And it's the same with getting too excited, which is where I've fallen guilty prior to the Vin stuff. I felt guilty with my investing. I'd just get excited and be gung-ho, and I had to learn some humility around making sure I had checked all the boxes, making sure I had done all my homework, that I did have all the buffers, that I did understand my worst case scenario. And in amongst all of that, the center part that nobody ever lives in is that place of certainty and confidence where you have knowledge, support, understanding, strategy, all of that stuff that helps you navigate the tough times. Thankfully, all of the work I'd done with the portfolio and having to navigate those hard times put me in good stead to use some of those tools to continue to navigate, life post Vin, post having 32 years with a fabulous, fabulous man. And so your journey may not have had the same challenges, but where do you go when shit goes wrong? Do you throw your toys? Do you go to ego? Don't they know, I'm important. Avoidance. Do you bury your head? And Jason and I refer to it as going down the elevator. So you have a choice when you have a challenge, and you can either go up the elevator to a resourceful place, or you can go down the elevator and throw your toys. So when I'm coaching clients, absolutely people need to express. That doesn't mean they're having, that they're being unresourceful, but they need to express. And then we need to talk about, okay, so what are we doing to fix this moving forward? For that, I need you to go up the elevator. Positive intelligence, I've just put that as a wee note. I spoke about it at the summit. There's some good stuff in there about your saboteurs. So what are some of your behaviours that you might go to when you're under pressure? That's worth checking out. And like I said before, investing is a tool that forces you to grow, or you won't succeed, guys, and you will become someone's barbecue story. Oh, did you hear about that guy? He bought that property and he sold it for less than he bought it for. Oh, this is why I wouldn't do investing. Like, you become that story. And so for our clients, for everyone out there that is looking to create wealth for themselves and invest in property, get into the self-development, guys. Get around people. This is why we had the 6-star team. This is why at Property Summit we talk about this stuff, and why I wanted to share it with you guys as well, because I did get a lot of good feedback around the content of this, because people did feel, and these are our clients that are already investing, they did feel it was relevant to their journey and what tools they needed in order to invest successfully. So as much as we'd love to, we can't do it for you. Hence, I can't tell you, yeah, just buy that deal, that'll be great. It requires your input, you taking control of your investment, your business of investing, and running with it and educating yourself and understanding and taking responsibility and putting your hand up when you need help. Coming to the team, getting the resources that you need, and having us assist you along the way. It's partnering with you, not doing it for you. And I've just got a wee note there, thinking back to consolidation stage, and where many people often trade their investing success if they don't ask for help and go down the elevator rather than up. So my question for all of you is, who are you? What tools have you got to navigate the good and the tough times? And what do you need to do to foster the best you and grow those skills in order to be successful for the people that matter in your life? And I ask people all the time, like, what do you want most in life? What does success look like? What's your number one goal that really has to be not negotiable for you? Because it's this stuff that provides the fuel for our investing. And sometimes it can take a while to find the goal. Don't stress if you don't know what it is immediately. Sometimes we set goals and they just don't feel right, but you go through the process and that can be a bit frustrating. But as you keep going through the process, they will emerge. It's like peeling layers of an onion. So these are the things that I like to ask clients and really understand, because investing is not for the faint of heart. But done well with a team, choosing to embrace discomfort, learn new skills, it will propel your results. Tools I like to use as well are definitely music. It's a massive state changer. If I'm in a bad mood, I put on a pump up song. I don't feel like it, but as soon as I've got the pump up happening, I feel much better. Look after your health, because we want to be around to enjoy the fruits of our labor. Meditation, prayer if that's your thing, grounding practices, something to center yourself so that you've got the energy for the annoying things, or maybe it's just paperwork, and foster quality friendships are all important to having a fantastic outcome. And so wrapping it up for this podcast, and this is where we get into a little bit of foo-foo stuff, it is all about the araha, what we call araha in New Zealand, which is love, just in case you didn't know. So the biggest lesson I've learned is that it is all about the love. Be brave. Don't be scared to risk something. Make the time and prioritize what is important, and put in the work. Say the thing. Make sure that you're letting the people around you that you love know that you love them. End the thing. If it's not serving you, if it's not serving, where you're at right now, be brave and end the thing. You leave space for the right thing or something better or the right thing at that moment. And love hard, because holding back love is never a solution to keep yourself safe. I've seen a lot of people over the years, over my coaching years, where when we do goals, this stuff comes up for people. And where I see the most emotional pain and misery for people is around fear around money and not being enough, because money is just essentially energy that brings up different feelings for us. And when money is involved, we associate self-esteem with it, we associate self-worth with it. We have stories around it about how our parents managed it, around failure, around success and what that means. So don't be afraid to leave nothing on the table. If it's going to end, it's going to hurt if you've loved hard, but it's still worth it. I see no point in holding back love to save yourself a bit of pain. You hurt yourself more in the long run. The wonderful thing about love is that it is expansive and that there is always room for more. And most importantly and ultimately, it is the key to a compelling future. And if I hark right back to the beginning of my talk, where I was talking about what do I do now that Vin is no longer here and everything I've worked for and strived for feels meaningless, I had to come back and close the circle on this and realize that it is about love, and that just because this hurt was, rocked my foundations, you can't be afraid to love again, because love is what matters and love is the key to the compelling future. And then when we have resources on top of that, that just makes it even better. So successful investing, guys. Thanks for listening to the foo-foo at the end. And all the best with your investing. That's it for me for now. Take care. All the best, Tab. If today's podcast has brought up difficult feelings, or if you're going through a tough time right now, please know you're not alone. Loss can take many forms, and it's okay to ask for help. Lifeline is available 24/7 to offer confidential support. You can call them anytime on 131114 or visit lifeline.org.au for more resources. Take care of yourself, and thanks for listening. Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.